what is turning out to be the deadliest campus shooting in U.S. history.
On the morning of April 16, 2007, students at Virginia Polytechnic Institute and State University, commonly known as Virginia Tech, began what seemed like a normal day in Blacksburg, Virginia. At around 7:15 a.m., that normal routine was shattered when gunshots were reported inside a campus residence hall. Police responded, initially believing the situation might be contained, but less than 2 hours later, gunfire erupted again inside a classroom building. Within minutes, panic spread across campus as one of the deadliest school shootings in U.S. history unfolded, a tragedy that would leave the nation in shock and raise lasting questions about campus safety and emergency response. Before this video starts, this channel is supported by my Patreon. On Patreon, you get uncensored versions of videos, early access to uploads, and shoutouts in future videos. Your support helps fund deeper research and keeps this channel independent. Links are below if you'd like to join. On the 18th of January 1984, Sung-Hui Cho was born in the area of Asan, South Korea. Not much is known about Sung-Hui Cho's childhood. However, it is known that when he was around the age of 8 in September 1992, he as well as his family moved to the United States due to his father's recent job. Whilst in the United States, he became a U.S. permanent resident, as well as being a South Korean national. During Cho's years in middle school, he was diagnosed with selective mutism, a severe anxiety disorder and a major depressive disorder. Following on from this diagnosis, he started receiving therapy and special education up until his junior year in high school. During his years in elementary and middle school, his teachers and classmates described him as quiet and shy, with some claiming he had problems when communicating with peers. A few behavioral signs were raised around this time. Amongst these included the fact that Cho often seemed withdrawn and struggling when it comes to social settings, with concerns regarding his emotional health being raised as early as middle school. During his first few years in school, he attended Poplar Tree Elementary School, finishing the 3-year program set for him in just a year and a half, with some claiming he was academically ahead of his classmates. In his teen years, he attended Westfield High School in Chantilly, within the Fairfax County, Virginia. Whilst he attended this school, he became a frequent target of bullying due to his unusual speech mannerisms. As a result, Cho refused to answer questions out loud and stopped participating within class. When Cho was in 9th grade in 1999, the news of a shooting at Columbine High School in Colorado began to make national news. Cho began to fixate on this news and even idolized both Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold, the perpetrators in the Columbine massacre. Cho actually wrote in a school assignment about wanting to, quote, repeat Columbine. Upon seeing this, the school contacted Cho's sister, who then reported this incident to their parents. Cho was then sent to a psychiatrist. Cho was reportedly bullied by fellow students whilst in middle and high school. He later graduated from Westfield High School in 2003. Following on from his high school years, Cho enrolled into Virginia Tech, a university located in the area of Blacksburg, Virginia. In 2003, Cho enrolled as an undergraduate major in business information technology. By his senior year, however, Cho was majoring in English with intentions of becoming a writer. American poet Nikki Giovanni said she taught Cho in a poetry class in the fall of 2005. He was later removed from the class by her after she claimed he was acting menacingly, describing his writing as intimidating. During this class, Cho had intimidated female classmates by taking pictures of their legs under their desks, as well as writing violent and obscene poetry. It was reported that during Cho's first year at Virginia Tech, he tried his best to fit in with other students, but had become very isolated by his last year. During a party that Cho attended, he sat in the corner, stabbing the carpet in the girls' room whilst his roommates were present. Cho was known to act strangely toward his female classmates, with a few really concerning warning signs being raised around this time. Cho would often message girls online under the alias ? Contacting one girl in November 2005 through phone calls as well as in person, showing up to her room unannounced. The female student notified the Virginia Tech Police Department as she felt very uneasy following the incident. The police, however, did not take this incident seriously, as there were no actual threats of violence within the messages between both Cho and the girl. 2 uniformed members of the campus police visited Cho, however, and warned him not to contact the girl again, in which Cho complied. A similar incident would occur just a month later. On the 13th of December 2005, Cho contacted another girl online, messaging her quite frequently. He would then write a quote from Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet on her door. The girl involved was initially unconcerned about this behavior. That was until she was contacted by Andy Koch, who once shared a room with Cho whilst they were both at Virginia Tech. Koch told the girl that Cho had previously been warned for stalking other girls, speculating that Cho might have undiagnosed schizophrenia. The girl saw this as concerning and then contacted campus police, who once again warned Cho against further unwanted contact. On the same day, Cho sent an email to Andy Koch, writing, "I might as well kill myself now." This worried Koch, who contacted his father for advice. Both Koch and his father contacted campus authorities, who escorted Cho to New River Valley Community Services Board, which was the Virginia mental health agency serving Blacksburg. Cho was examined the same day and was found as, quote, mentally ill and in need of hospitalization. Cho was released from this institute a day later on the 14th of December 2005. It was following this, in 2006, that Cho initially began to take an interest in different firearms. He continued to attend his classes at Virginia Tech and continued on with his disturbing writings, often writing about violence and school shootings. Andy Koch, who shared a room with Cho in 2006, claimed that Cho had an imaginary girlfriend called Jelly. At a party, however, when Cho was under the influence of alcohol, he would claim that Jelly was a supermodel living in outer space. Koch described other incidents that were disturbing, claiming that one time, Cho stood in the doorway late at night taking pictures of Koch. Cho was also known to repeatedly place phone calls harassing Koch as Cho's brother, called ? However, these calls were just placed by Cho himself. This ? name was also used when he would introduce himself to girls. It would be in the first few months of 2007 that Cho began to purchase firearms, buying a Walther P22 handgun on the 9th of February 2007 and a Glock 19 handgun a month later on the 13th of March 2007. He also bought ammunition and magazines around this time. It was clear that Cho was planning something, and just a month after purchasing the Glock 19 handgun, Cho carried out one of the deadliest shootings in American history. In the weeks beforehand, his anger and isolation deepened in silence, unnoticed by most and underestimated by others. What appeared to be fragments of troubling behavior were, in truth, pieces of something far more ominous taking shape. Then, on the morning of April 16th, 2007, as students moved through campus expecting an ordinary day, that quiet routine was violently torn apart. By the time it was over, shock and grief had settled over the nation, and the warning signs that once seemed distant now felt chillingly clear. On the 16th of April 2007, at around 6:47 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, Cho was seen near the entrance of the West Ambler Johnston Hall, a high-rise coeducational dormitory that houses almost 900 students. At around 7:15 a.m., Cho entered a room that freshman Emily Jane Hilscher shared with another student. Cho then shot her. A 22-year-old senior, Ryan C. Clark, heard the gunshots and attempted to help Emily Hilscher. Cho then noticed and shot and killed Ryan Clark. Emily survived for 3 hours, but would sadly go on to die. Cho then fled the scene. Another freshman, Molly Donahue, who lived opposite Emily, tried to enter her room after seeing bloody footprints, but she was unable to enter as a body was blocking the door from the inside. Cho returned to his room in Harper Hall, a dormitory located west of the West Ambler Johnston Hall. At this time, police and emergency services were called to the previous shooting carried out by Cho. Whilst in his dorm room, Cho changed his clothes, logged onto his laptop, and deleted all of his emails, as well as deleting his student university account. He then took his hard drive out of his computer. Around 2 hours after the first shooting, Cho went to a local post office and mailed a package containing writings as well as video recordings to NBC News. This package was postmarked at 9:01 a.m. 39 minutes later, at around 9:40 a.m., Cho entered Norris Hill, which housed the Engineering Science and Mechanics program, amongst others. Cho had a backpack which contained heavy-duty chains, locks, a hammer, a knife, 2 handguns, and 400 rounds of ammunition. Using both the locks and chains, Cho chained 3 doors shut and placed a note on one saying that if you attempted to open the door, a bomb would explode. This was all in an attempt at delaying police response. Cho retrieved his weapons in an empty room, room 200. According to multiple eyewitnesses, he appeared to look into different classrooms, possibly to see how many students were in each room. Following this, Cho started to shoot, making his way to room 206, which held 13 students and a professor. Cho shot and killed the professor, G.V. Loganathan. After killing the professor, Cho continued firing into the classroom, killing 9 of the 13 students within the classroom, injuring 2 others. Cho then exited room 206 into the hallway, where he noticed 2 other students, shooting toward them both, injuring one whilst the other escaped. Cho made his way towards room 207, where an instructor, Jamie Bishop, was teaching introductory German. Cho shot Jamie Bishop and some of his students who were near the door. He then continued to shoot through the hallway. Jamie Bishop and 4 of his students were killed by Cho, and 6 other students were also shot, but went on to survive. Cho then moved on to Norris 211 and 204, where he initially couldn't enter due to barricading on the rooms. After hearing all of the shooting, a professor, Kevin Granada, guided 20 students from a classroom on the 3rd floor into his office, which was able to be locked. Kevin Granada then went downstairs to investigate alongside another professor, Wally Grant. Both professors were seen by Cho, who shot them both. Kevin Granada sadly died after being shot by Cho. However, Wally Grant made his way to a bathroom and was seriously wounded, but went on to survive. It's important to note that no students that Kevin Granada hid in his office were shot or killed. Rest in peace. Cho made his way toward room 211 and gained access to the classroom and began to shoot at all the students inside, killing 11 students and the professor. One student, Matthew Laporte, who was a trained Air Force ROTC member of the Virginia Tech Corps of Cadets, charged towards Cho whilst he was shooting. However, he was sadly shot 7 times and died seconds later. Rest in peace. At around 9:50 a.m., a SWAT team began to enter the building. They entered through a separate entrance as they were unable to shoot their way through the chains and locks set by Cho. The SWAT team descended on the stairwells, and after hearing the footsteps, Cho turned his Glock 19 on himself, shooting himself in the temple, killing himself instantly. During the 2 attacks, 32 people lost their lives, 27 students and 5 faculty members. Their names are remembered, their stories honored, and their impact endures. They are not defined by the tragedy, but by the lives they lived and the legacy they left behind. In the years since the tragedy at Virginia Tech, people have tried to understand what could have led to something so devastating. The writings and videos Cho left behind showed a person consumed by anger, isolation, and resentment. He saw himself as wronged and misunderstood. But even with those explanations, there is no simple answer that makes sense of it. His actions were his own, and the pain they caused cannot be justified by anything he believed. In the immediate aftermath, the campus was overwhelmed with grief. Classes were canceled as students and staff gathered for vigils. Candles lined walkways, names were read aloud. For many, the shock lingered long after the headlines faded. It wasn't just a national news story. It was friends, classmates, professors. It was empty seats in lecture halls. Across the country, colleges began reviewing their emergency systems and campus safety procedures. Conversations about mental health support and firearm background checks grew more urgent. In Virginia, changes were made to improve how mental health rulings were reported to the National Background Check System. Universities expanded counseling services and created threat assessment teams in hopes of recognizing warning signs earlier. Over time, Virginia Tech focused on remembrance. A permanent memorial now stands on campus, honoring the 32 lives lost. Every year, the community gathers to read their names and reflect. Scholarships, service projects, and acts of kindness continue in their memory. The tragedy is a permanent part of the university's history, but it does not define the people who were lost. They are remembered for who they were: students pursuing dreams, professors dedicated to their work, individuals deeply loved by family and friends. And while April 16, 2007 will never be forgotten, neither will the lives that continue to be honored because of it. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe as it helps the channel out greatly. Thank you for watching.